I think I'd use it. Here we are. Welcome to the first WREMAC meeting of 2024. I will call the meeting to order with my hammer here. Attached in the email that went out yesterday is the November meeting minutes, today's agenda, and various approvals and bylaws for vote today. Before we dig into business and approve minutes, I'm just going to do attendance. So if you are on the phone, please let us know. I can kind of see who's there, but I can't really figure out everybody's number. So I'm just going to go through names really quickly. Dr. Lynch. Dr. Seth.
Yes, that's me.
Kelly.
Okay.
Dr. Vargo. Dr. Kaluri. Dr. Peterson. Mr. Knoll. Here. Make sure you sign when it comes around. Dr. Barney. Here. Hello, sir. Dr. Krojek. Dr. Edwards. Dr. Singer. Dr. Stevenson. Dr. Falk. Mr. Reisner. Mr. Wilson. Dr. Walters is here. Dr. Winter.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Dr. Borton.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Tanaka.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Cosgrove. Dr. Clemency is here. Dr. Bart. Dr. Martin. Dr. Mangione. Dr. McNamara. Dr. Kenyon.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Killian. Dr. Visser. Dr. McGee. Dr. Collins. Mr. Gill. Dr. Toy.
Online.
Thank you. Dr. Shaw and Dr. Plunka are with us remotely. Ms. Moses, I see in the room. Mr. Major. Mr. Treepaz.
Present online.
Here. Don? Okay. Ms. Kane.
Here.
Okay. Ms. Broadbent.
Here.
And Karen is missing today. All right. Very good. I'll pass the sign-in sheet around for people to sign that are here in person, please. Okay, so the attached minutes from November 15th meeting were in the email. I'd like to start off with a motion to approve, if you've had a chance to take a look. Sure. Oh, sure. Regarding pens. Keep it himself.
Josette Toisher move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? A lot of people in this room. Second. Thank you, Dr. Clemency. All right, any opposition? Great, minutes are done. CMAC Semsco reports. Dr. Walton.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through a couple of things, and I'll try and be brief here. The meeting was back at the beginning of February. I think one of the biggest things, and this is kind of in no particular order, because things get discussed kind of in committee and then at the CMAC, the Semsco and that, so I'm gonna kind of go through these notes. So in no particular order, one of the big things that all of our providers should be aware, and this was discussed at the prior meeting, at least proposed, but was approved by the Semsco, this last one, is that the state has decided to sunset the critical care level, the CC level, and that will be effective July of 2027. At that time, the CC protocol will cease to exist as the collaborative protocols, and then anyone who holds a CC card at that time would essentially become an AEMT if they haven't upgraded to the paramedic level at that time. So that's important. That gives a few years for providers to either look at the state bridge program that's done out of Northwell that can be done online and then do the skills locally, or to apply for advanced standing in a local paramedic class. So there's been some discussion, some debate. I know Allegheny County presented some information and some of their ways that they were looking to be proactive in bridging their providers in that, which I think was a very good discussion of what they've done. And that did go through, so I want everybody to be aware of that and to discuss that if you do have critical care still operating in your systems. There were just kind of going through the medical standards discussion. There was an update on the BLS IGEL project pilot program. There have been, at that time, there were 239 BLS IGEL insertions across the state. They presented a bunch of data just to kind of skip the punchline. It seemed to be effective. Good data on some outcomes. I think 24% had lost in the field or in the ED, and no real significant complications or anything. One of the issues identified is that despite the 239 insertions, only about half of those had data that kind of made it through the state EPCR system where we could get good data from them, and they have different redundancy procedures in place to capture that data. But that was identified as something that we look at, is how we get good data and information back from our EPCRs and be able to make good decisions. And if when half that data is getting through, then we don't have the full picture on that. So that was discussed at length. If anybody's interested, you can certainly watch the recording of that meeting. There is a medication alternate medication formulary that has been discussed, and that was adopted, as well as there's some discussion in terms of the hospice protocol. I'll come back to protocols a little bit separately under the library protocol and under the agenda. There was also some robust discussion about community paramedicine, and specifically what some of the agencies downstate or in the island were looking to do. And there's some discussion about what the CMAC can do under current legislation and the wording of community paramedicine, EMS and things. Some of those things may change with some of the proposed governor's budget. And since I just mentioned it, the governor's budget does have some changes related to EMS in this year's budget. Of course, we know that a lot of those things can change at the last minute, but I do think it is important that this is the third year in a row, I think, where EMS has had a specific section of changes in the governor's budget that when the budget gets approved would then go into effect to change regulations. So it is kind of important for us in recognition of all the things from this governor and the state on down of the impact and the role EMS plays in the community, and about trying to give us the resources and changes in legislation to move things forward, such as community paramedicine. There's some other things about EMS becoming an essential service and what that means and who's responsible for ensuring that EMS is provided. If you don't know right now, and I see a lot of students here in the audience, nothing requires any municipality to provide EMS service in the state of New York right now, right? So EMS that is provided, is done because we know it's the right thing and it is an essential service, but nothing actually mandates a municipality to do that, like they're required to provide fire protection. So this would change some of those things. There is, as I think has been discussed a bunch of times, and you are all familiar with Nemesis, or Nemesis as I hear it referred to in your PCRs and your charting and locking of PCRs. Nemesis 3.5 needs to be incorporated by all agencies in their PCRs by July 1st. They may start moving to that, I believe already. Rob, is that correct?
More or less, yes.
If they choose to. While it does require the EPCR vendor to be in compliance with that, and they have to be ready for that implementation, it is actually, the requirement is actually for the agency to do it. And I believe that's regulation, Lisa, is that right? Somewhere it requires the agency to be responsible for that, yes. Thank you.
Just to clarify, the state is fully ready to receive 3.5 now? More or less, yes. So no? Medium? We should get Peter on the phone. Kind of right there. All right.
There really isn't any vendor that's ready to put that in place.
Okay.
Other than.
And I think the last thing, and I'll come up with the protocols later, Mike, is it had been discussed for the last few years. There was discussion about a state EMS medical director, which a lot of us lobbied for. We are one of the few states that doesn't have a state EMS medical director. That was initially a part-time position, and evidently there was not a whole lot of candidates and things for that, and probably because of the pay scale. So that has now been changed to a full-time medical director position that I believe is somewhere in the HR process. I don't know.
Civil service.
Civil service process, yeah. So there'll be more about that in the future. I saw Dr. Clemens raise his hand, who's interested in that. Did Albany?
You did not.
Oh, must have been a pitch. And I think that's all that I have, unless anybody else has any other updates or things. I know there's some other things from training and education, so if anybody has any updates on that, they want to bring up, please do.
Thank you. Chairman's report, just two brief items. We'll talk about the bylaws under old business in a little bit, but they were attached right after the agenda. And then just a reminder, right, we're getting pretty close to July 1st, and on July 1st, every hospital that's providing medical direction to the region has to attest that they're reporting their calls and that they will be provided to the REMAC committee upon request. So I would encourage you, if you haven't, to just touch base with your, the hospital representatives, touch base with your ED director, and just somebody provide some type of verification to the REMAC. An email would be fine, a letter would be fine. A text message is not as fine, but just letting us know when you are up and running with your reporting systems. That way we can check you off a list of people to start reminding fairly heavily come June. That's all I've got, which will bring us to Trauma Advisory Committee, and I see Beth in the audience.
Just brief report, the RTAC did meet, simply to, renominate Megan Mullen as the staff representative. We had a deadline to meet on that, so we had to hold a meeting. And the only other thing is just, I've been requested to remind everybody to, give specific vital signs, not vital signs stable, whether you're a provider, EMS provider, or emergency medicine provider on scene. We want the exact vital sign, please. Thank you.
Program agencies, so that brings us to STEMS.
Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Okay, my report was attached with the agenda. Just a few things to highlight. We did hold a stroke CME presentation with Dr. Belay from Olean General, as well as Dr. Sanger. So that was well attended and provided a lot of insight for individuals. We held a certified instructor update course that many people from not just our region, but from across the state attended. We had 42 people attend that. So that was really good. If you attended, thank you for doing that. Our paramedic program through the region, through All Stars Core Sponsor, is coming to an end here in the next month. So we're looking forward to the PSC and the students testing to add some more medics to our region. So we're looking forward to that. And then we are planning for another EMTB Academy this summer, like we have the past few summers. So that's still supported by the previous grant. And then lastly, we did put some new USDA distance learning equipment in different areas across the state. Randolph just had some installed, and Andover did as well. And the application for the USDA is open, so we are looking to add some more sites. So if anyone is interested, they can contact me.
Great, thank you. Wyoming Area Big Lakes.
So we've been doing a few things. We've been working with the various counties on the upcoming solar event, and providing whatever support we can there. We did attend a meeting to kind of piggyback off of Dr. Walters. So for the critical care, I know that I was recently requested from Niagara County a list of all critical cares that remain in their region. And one of the things that they're looking at is supporting financially, sending everybody through the bridge program at the county's cost. I know that that was going to go before the legislation. I don't know where it was going from there. But I know that was one option that they were looking at to help support that and bring more paramedics into the field. The other thing, as far as education goes, other than the critical care stuff, I do know on February 6th, the regulatory changes proposed that went out for public comment ended. I've been in contact with the education unit down at the Bureau, and I've been informed that there were very few public comments. So it looks like that they are going to come before the council in May. And so fingers crossed, we'll get some of those changes that will help both on the recruitment and retention side and other various changes that are going on. Other than that, I know both Mike and I have been participating on many different committees. So more to come. Other than that, everything else was in our report. That's Mike has everything.
Thank you. So that brings us then to various subcommittee reports and back to Dr. Walters.
So before I talk about the collaborative protocols, one thing I did forget under the state and CMAC SEMSCO report is in last year's governor's budget and legislation, it did talk about changes for the SEMSCO to develop performance metrics and QA metrics for agencies. These were discussed and I think what's going to come out of this is that, and these are still going through kind of the regulatory approval process, but will eventually require agencies to all do some type of QA, right? And to choose 3 QA metrics that are relevant, and they don't care which ones they are, but just that all agencies are actually actively looking at QA, what they're doing and how to make the process better. So that's number one that will come down the road. And then the other two, and they're kind of linked, but the other one are performance metrics. And they decided, as opposed to saying, looking at like certain response performance or things like that and setting a baseline, saying we need to gather data from the state and see where agencies are, what the staffing is like, unit hour staff, and what the percentage of agencies response to being able to handle their own calls for certain volunteer agencies or staff agencies. You know, are they only getting out the door 50% of the time or 80% of the time, or where does that stand? So there will be some collection of data without any requirement or metric that you have to meet to try to establish that baseline. And then I think shortly thereafter, in subsequent years, we'll begin to actually look at what agencies must meet and then what will happen if they don't. My guess is that will come up during some of their agency inspections and maybe SODs issued and plans of correction required and things like that. So just sort of raising words about that because I know we've discussed it in previous meetings. To go back to the collaborative protocol discussions, there are some changes that have been made to the collaborative protocols that we mentioned. These changes will take effect on July 1st, or I guess we could as a region decide to implement them sooner, but July 1st would be the deadline, and that's kind of the new protocol revisements and schedule on that. With these in previous revisions, we've required some type of protocol in service and exam and things. The general feeling from the state collaborative protocol group is that these changes are relatively minor. There's a lot of things that clear up protocols in the wording, clarify things, correct some spelling and grammar issues. And then there are a few new protocols, such as, you know, there's the hospice protocol. There's some things, some different medications and things like IV Tylenol, things like that, but nothing that's really too substantial. So in general, other regions are not requiring any particular update, and my recommendation would be that we probably would want to do the same or not require any additional education and or testing for these. There is a complete list of a change log for these. So for the BLS changes, it is 4 pages. These are bullet pointed of what was changed in the specific protocol. So you can look through and read these. I believe for the ALS changes, I think there's about 9 pages, but again, bullet pointed and just kind of line by line clarifies the wording change and what was done. So everybody knows what was done. Going forward, the collaborative protocol group will make sure there's a change log associated with every update. So you don't have to try to compare side by side and see what was done or what changed or kind of read through things or miss something. But we can circulate those for review, but most of these I think are not that substantial. And unless anyone has any disagreement, I would advocate that we don't require specific Yeah, regional test. Now, certainly an agency could if they wanted to do a test and or education on that, but in the region, I don't think.
Yeah, we talked about creating some education about it. But I think, I agree, not making a mandate, not making a test. The agency decided that they want to, but we're gonna, somebody from UVM Emergency Medicine is gonna put together a PowerPoint, make it widely available, as long as nothing else is coming from some other group, right? So if somebody in the state, or if Rochester is doing stuff, we're happy to steal it from them. But if not, we're gonna put it together and share it widely.
So right now, there are a few things that, obviously, there's some Bolts education out there that Dr. Dorset did, Lawrence. I think Dr. Cushman has done one on IV Tylenol, and there's a few other things like that that we can make available as they come out. But I don't think anybody has done kind of a general overview of that for your.
So that might be helpful to, curate it all in one place and maybe, and focus on where the gaps are. So like if there's really good stuff on Tylenol, don't need to worry about that. But we're planning on doing that for our agency to share.
So it'll just be a PowerPoint you're gonna do, just kind of covering the changes and updates.
Yeah.
BLS and ALS.
Yes.
Anything else?
That is it.
Thank you. All right, there are a couple matters pending before the UI committee, but I think they're early, but Dr. Tanaka, anything to report?
We had a couple of calls that we were asked to review over the last couple of months, like in January. One was regarding a specific provider. I reached out to the medical director of that agency, and they were aware of that provider, and they're doing an ongoing remediation process. And so I think that has been addressed thoroughly, and so that issue was closed. And then the other call, or the other case, was regarding a crew that was diverted from one hospital to another hospital with possibly impending airway, but it appears that there was a big miscommunication between the physician on the phone and the provider. And so that has also been addressed. And that's all I have for report.
Well, thank you very much. All right, moving forward then, that brings us to the ad hoc interfacility transport committee. I didn't hear Todd on the phone earlier, but is anybody from the committee here wanting to talk about these? He's on it.
Dr. O'Brien, I'm on.
All right, Todd, hi.
Thank you. I believe this body has received the draft document that our committee has created. I first want to say thank you to Milram's. We used their documents as a source for guidance in the creation of our new interfacility transport protocols. So I certainly want to tip my hat and acknowledge their excellence in what they've created. It was our committee's belief that just taking their protocols, their plan really didn't fit into our region. So we worked pretty hard on our offering here. And I was hopeful that the doctors have had a chance to look through it and offer comments. Like I say, we fully expected some comments from the doctors on this body. Thoughts? Comments?
Todd, it's Brian. So first, thanks. This is a huge work and really well done. I was wondering if you guys could just talk about the contacting medical control piece, and if it's different or the same from what Milram's had. It looks like, so is the intention for like an intubated stable patient going ICU to ICU, it says medical control needs to be contacted. Is that like, it is not sufficient to repeat the current bed settings, or do you need to speak to a doctor before taking that patient out?
No, the purpose behind that language, doctor, was to ensure that during the transfer, whoever is determined to be the medical control physician for that trip needs to be available. So let's say we head out the door at 7 o'clock at night and you are my medical control physician, but you're hanging it up for the night and going home. That can't happen. We need to have the capability to communicate with the medical control physician during the entirety of the transfer. I think that's the question you were asking.
Okay, but not, it just says medical control must be established in the following circumstances, so that's, the committee doesn't see that as being contacting before the start of the transfer?
Yeah, yes, that's what we want. We want to establish medical command before the start of the transfer. And are you referring to a specific section in the protocol that I can look at? So we're
Yeah.
talking about the same thing.
Looking at page 4.
Uh-huh.
Contacting medical control.
Yeah, where it's underlined must. So
Yeah.
this is just language reinforcing that we need to establish medical control prior to the transport.
Does that mean establish who would be the medical control in a problem, or does it mean talk to the medical control provider?
No, just establishing that, establishing the commitment of that physician or transferring provider is going to be medical command. And ideally, we would like written transport orders with enough depth and clarity to help us manage the patient during transport.
I think, I think that's just, I think we just want to make sure that the language there doesn't have confusion, so. Yeah.
You think that the language here should be edited? I am certainly open to any suggestions for edits. If this is confusing, we can certainly go back to the drawing board and address this with your help.
I think it's a really important topic, and I'm really glad you guys chose to tackle it. I just want to make sure that we're all reading it the same way. And so I think part of the discussion is what the intent, and the second part of the intent is making sure we're making sure the intent matches in an unambiguous way. I think this is a really important section that we've not had clear guidance on in the past. So I think this is really good stuff.
Agreed. I think this is, and the reason we have to get really clear and really specific, right, as a regional document of a body that exists as a downstream result of legislation, right? Like if there are reviews or there are litigations, like these are guidelines that will be discoverable and will come up. So we just need to make sure they're super clear. But Todd, I mean, and the whole committee, if whoever else is here from it, this is a huge undertaking. It really looks great. Other thoughts, other comments from others on this?
Where can comments be sent to? I have like a typo edit,
Oh, sure.
little things like that.
Todd, would you be an okay contact for kind of typo grammaticals?
You can send it to me, Alicia.
I respectfully nominate Alicia to be.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can send it to me, Beth.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
So would it be helpful if we're 2 months away from the next meeting, kind of ask for comments within the next month? And that way we can circulate the comments, give the group time to edit based on the comments.
We actually haven't set the next meeting, but we're at least 2 months away from that. So yeah, I think let's shoot for 30 days to get all of our feedback into Alicia, and the committee can review it and make any corrections. We'll work on the clarified language for medical direction. And then, if barring something unforeseen, we can hopefully talk about maybe a vote at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd just like to give a shout out to the individuals on the committee. This was not something that I tackled alone. We had multiple individuals that really provided excellent input, and I tip my hat to them.
Well, appreciate that, and I appreciate you volunteering to spearhead it so long ago and to turn this around. This is really impressive. Thank you very much. Okay, so that will be tabled pending some review and any necessary revisions, which will then back up to my agenda here. That will bring us now onward to old business. So I guess we can start with the bylaws. They were attached to the agenda after the various program agency reports. I did add back in the inadvertent exclusion of a REMSCO representative from the voting membership of the WREMAC. They are back. Apologies for that. It was unintentional. There's also an area that is new from the last time we discussed it regarding, poor attendance or misconduct of REMAC members, and really all it says is that the chair has discretion to take action on somebody's membership for cause. That would really just lead up to suspension, which would automatically trigger a review by the QI committee. If the QI committee felt that the member should be, removed or replaced, then that would be referred to the whole voting membership and would require a 2/3 vote to go through. Otherwise, no major changes from the last time we discussed this. Any thoughts from the group?
Doc?
Sir?
So I noticed in there, in one part, it says that, any representative of a hospital should come to the REMAC for approval.
Yes.
Up to this point, it used to go to the REMSCO, and the REMSCO would bring it forward. Is that still the case, or are we bypassing that?
No, the REMSCOs are still the primary. We're really more approving, like welcoming them by approving them, if that makes sense. So the nomination should be sent to so the hospital should notify the REMAC of this is our intention. And as long as the regional council approves that person, then it's pro forma approval.
Is that reflected in this one?
I don't know, Brian, I didn't rewrite that policy. We can certainly tweak it to reflect that. That's fine. That's an easy fix. I'll make sure that's clear. What?
Does it need to go to the REMSCO? I would think that whoever the hospitals wants.
It sort of feels like an unnecessary step. It's just historically what we've done. I don't want to speak for the REMSCOs, but are there any thoughts in the room? It does seem like an unnecessary piece of business for them, but I don't want to put words in their mouth.
Can I chime in?
Yeah,
Sure.
It does delay the process
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
We had to change over a number of our medical directors, and it delays the process. You have to wait for them to have a meeting, and you have to wait for REMAC to have a meeting, so
Right.
it ends up taking like 6 months before you can actually change over your medical director or your representative.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of feel like I feel like every member of the REMAC is pretty well cleared out and should be pretty automatic, like i.e. whoever the hospitals want, whoever the approved medical director for each agency is, should be pretty automatic, and the only ones that need REMSCO action would be the REMSCO representatives.
I think what you've just described is what's reflected in this document, and I'm supportive of that.
We'll do that. Any other comments?
Just what is the quorum? Did the quorum change?
The quorum is-
They're changing.
It is in there, let me just find where it is, I don't think it changed
So
significantly.
it's the same.
It's 5 members, one for at least 2 regions and a presiding.
So it's functionally the same, but this is gonna make the denominator much larger.
Much larger. Brian, I saw your hand up today.
I was gonna ask that question,
Oh.
dynamic forum, in essence, when you're adding open scope and all that, directors,
Yes,
what constitutes membership and what are the dynamic forum and how do you plan on handling that?
well, I mean, the best advice I got was that we can simply just, as long as the group agrees and passes it with normal business, we can sort of define what we consider a quorum. So I left that unchanged because of we're gonna be expanding the denominator to dozens and dozens of people, and I don't expect attendance at the meetings to dramatically increase, although I would welcome that. So I didn't want to find ourselves in a position where we were continually paralyzed with inaction because we couldn't meet a quorum. So I left it unchanged, except adding the words that they need a presiding officer, which would have to be the chair or vice chair or a designee, which is sort of detailed. But I'm open to thoughts if people have better ideas or concerns. I just worry if we add, 50 people, we'll never reach a quorum if we make it proportional. Certainly everyone's welcome to come and express and vote at their leisure.
I think it's fine, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions or points of order or clarification? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve and adopt the bylaws as written here.
Document, they have to sit for this meeting, they have to be read, so the meeting reread and then voted,
Very well,
Each like a fine wine.
something like that.
okay. Well, in order to meet that then, let's get one reading out of the way. I will read them aloud and that'll be fun. And then we'll let them percolate and we can read them again at the next meeting and decide then. So, rules of operation and governance.
Actual reading.
I'm gonna read it. I'm just kidding. So they are in front of you. There are no substantive changes from today. So the document that is included in the agenda is the one I would like you to review and percolate on and think about. We will We will not entertain any changes prior to discussing at the next meeting, and we'll go. Wonderful. Any other old business? Yes.
Just wondering if we have an update on where we're at with the online vacation course. You knew it was coming.
The slides are done. I have used them now in 2 base station courses that I've taught, and I think they're okay. So I will set up, I will actually take some time to record it. And then I'll send out the recording to a couple people, like the program agencies and some of the hospital reps for kind of a preview and feedback. And then we'll talk about that maybe for REMAC approval to post online, possibly by the next meeting as well. Yeah.
I would make a motion that we attempt to get the CME credit for it, through UP.
We can sure try.
So unless anyone has any objection, I'll get that ball rolling. No guarantee, but does anyone have any objection to try it?
Yeah, maybe we'll get it.
Cool.
Yeah. So hopefully it's not a big.
Now we didn't have before.
Yep, sounds good. This would be, the way I'm envisioning this, because we're not gonna worry about a huge LMS for tracking and whatnot. I mean, this is just gonna be an attestation, right? So send an attestation to your hospital rep or to the REMAC saying you viewed it, and the rest is on you. But yeah, I'm shooting for next meeting. Other old business. Great.
There would have to be, for CME, there'd have to be a evaluative component, so you have to, in order to be CME eligible, based on CME rules, you have to answer 4 questions.
I'll put the survey, everybody presents on there somewhere. All right, new business. We have sort of a number of approvals as typical. Niagara Falls Air Force Base looking for a letter of support from the REMAC to become BLSFR. Do they have a medical director? They do. Okay, great. Anybody see a reason not to support their application to do that? Hearing no objections, then I will take that as direction from the REMAC to issue a letter of support if they want one. Cambria volunteer fire seeking conditional approval for AMT to paramedic pending their narcotic license. So this is the routine letter we issue supporting them because they need that letter of support in order to get their CS license. Any objections there? Hearing none, I will provide that letter of support. And then we will do the following approvals and notifications of intent as listed on the agenda en masse with one addition. I believe it is Cleve Hill is changing medical directors from Dr. Tackett's to Dr. Coretta. So if you would include that in your mental list of things that you're about to vote on, because the paperwork was submitted in time and is appropriate. So add that to the medical director changes, but we have medical director changes, level of care changes, CPAP approval, syringe epi notice of intent, glucometry approval, public access defibrillation notice of intent, and TXA notification as listed. I would entertain a motion to approve those en masse. Motion by Dr. Walters, is there a second?
Second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Teuscher and Dr. Sapp. Excellent. Any opposition? Hearing none, all of them are approved by unanimous consent. Any other new business before the REMAC? I'm hoping to get the remaining 3 meetings a year, because we're going to shoot for that with the new bylaws, but I will honor the original meeting dates until then, as prescribed in the currently active bylaws. So we'll send out a meeting notification in the next week or 2, so that way you can have a little more notice on the calendar. But we hope that the rest of the schedule will be sorted out once we get our new meeting schedule, because we're shooting for 4 meetings a year rather than the every other meeting skipping the summer.
So Mike, there is the fellows are looking at a demonstration project regarding use of ultrasound in cardiac arrest. I would think that could go to the QI committee for review, or do you want that to go to the chair for review?
QI seems good.
Because the state will want a letter of support from this body before it goes, take it to the QI committee. The other question that came up before this meeting centered around the REMAC's approval or endorsement of the NPDS response plans. There is version 14 is coming soon. And I would like the REMAC to look at a response plan system for version 14, giving it an endorsement, but also still allowing flexibility for agencies to modify it as they see fit. So that would probably be between now and the next meeting that would start to pan out.
Okay, yeah, I see a reason not to review that, and I don't foresee an issue supporting that on behalf of the REMAC. And then in terms for everybody, in terms of the fellowship project, the fellow project, this is looking to train a limited number of paramedics as part of the study participants on performing a limited cardiac ultrasound in cardiac arrest, which we believe will help us gather further information for appropriate terminations versus guiding other therapies. So this would be IRB approved by the University of Buffalo. There'll be a lot of oversight. It will also require state approval, but before it can go there, it needs approval from support rather from the REMAC. Any objection to issuing a letter of support in general for their study?
The way it would be designed would be not specific to any one agency, but there'd be very specific criteria an agency would have to meet in order to participate.
Is the intent to open it up statewide as a pilot program?
So, yeah, I mean, the intent is to go in front of CMAQ Subco, ideally at the May meeting, if they're able to get their ducks in a row before that, ahead of the deadline. Possibly not, but our thought is any agency who's able to meet the criteria should be invited to participate. But you would need to have a system of teaching and monitoring ultrasound to do it. So it's a much heavier lift than like BLS IGL or something like that.
All right, hearing no opposition, I will happily issue a letter of support for their study. Any other new business? All right, hearing none, I would love someone to make a motion to adjourn. People get weird about this.
Motion.
Dr. Seth, motion, second by Dr. Farney. We are adjourned. We'll send out an email at the next meeting very shortly. Thank you all for your time and attention. Have a good day. That would be rowdy.
Running